welcome to American Catholic History. If you like our podcast, be sure to follow us, give us a 5-star rating, and a great review wherever you get your podcasts. Also, please become a supporter at americancatholichistory.org/support. I'm Noelle Heaster-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Today we're talking about the proto-martyr of the Americas, the Spanish Franciscan missionary priest, Father Juan de Padilla. Not a whole lot is known about him, but it is known that he is the first person to shed his blood for Christ in what is now the United States. So he deserves an episode all his own.
Absolutely. And this opening brings up some interesting questions for Catholics in America. Now, we all know about the North American Martyrs, those 8 Jesuits killed in what is now New York and Ontario in the 1640s, or at least I hope we know all about them. We did an episode about the 3 who were martyred near modern-day Auriesville, New York. The way they are presented, it seems like they were the first to be martyred in the New World, but not so. This Franciscan friar, Father Juan de Padilla, earned the martyr's crown about 100 years earlier.
Now, the North American martyrs do have more detailed accounts of their lives and deaths, which may explain why they're better known and why they're canonized and Father de Padilla is not.
True. And it's too bad because having a martyr in the center of the country only 50 years after Christopher Columbus's first voyage is pretty remarkable. It would be pretty cool to see him canonized.
Well, maybe one day, but not yet. So, with enough banter at the beginning, let's tell his story from the start.
Never enough banter. Anyway, we know that he was born around 1500 in Andalusia, which is the southernmost part of Spain. He was a soldier in Spain before becoming a Franciscan and coming over to the New World as a missionary. When he came over isn't exactly clear, but there is a letter from 1529 which he signed and which shows that he was in New Spain by that year.
He was known as an energetic and trustworthy missionary, and he was given important responsibilities in the church. He founded a number of religious communities, and in the 1530s, he was in charge of a community of friars in Jalisco in west central Mexico. In 1540, he was tapped to be one of 4 Franciscans to join the conquistador Francisco Vázquez de Coronado on a journey north into New Mexico to conquer and colonize that region.
The Spanish authorities in Mexico City had been told of 7 cities of gold among the tribes of the untamed north, and Coronado was the one sent to see about it. And do a little more than just seeing about it, of course. But since this was a Spanish expedition, they brought along priests.
Right, of course, because that is what they did.
Yes.
Padilla's interest in going wasn't to find gold, of course. His interest was to evangelize the natives.
This massive undertaking, including 1,000 men, 1,300 horses and mules, and hundreds of head of sheep and cattle for food, set off from Compostela in 1540 and made for the Rio Grande. They traveled around the region of present-day Arizona, New Mexico, and western and northern Texas in late 1540 and early 1541. They found many pueblos, including the one at Taos, New Mexico, and they were the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon. I think they wrote home "big hole in the ground." Anyway.
But it was in Spanish.
Yeah. Un grande holo.
But they didn't come upon any gold.
They didn't come on any cities of gold.
No. However, in April of 1541, a native whom they'd taken captive began talking about a city of gold far to the east. He called it Quivira and said this is where they wanted to go. This captive, whom they called the Turk due to his appearance, convinced Coronado. So Coronado and a portion of the men decided to make the trek to this mythical town of Quivira. Father Padilla joined the group.
This trek took them far from New Mexico, across what is today the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, and up into modern-day Kansas. This territory was unlike anything they'd experienced. Rather than the arid high mountains, it was the Great Plains, the prairie, where the grass grew thick and the bison roamed.
In June, they reached the point where the Turks said Quivira should be. But all that was there was a series of villages of grass huts where some native tribes, like the Wichita, lived. It turned out the man whom they called the Turk was a member of this tribe and was just wanting to get back to his people. So he tricked Coronado into taking him there. Coronado was so enraged he had the Turk executed. And then the entire expedition turned around and returned to New Mexico.
But Father Padilla was taken with the plight of the people on the plains. His goal, after all, wasn't gold, but souls. He made it clear that he intended to return to the natives they had come across far to the east and to establish a mission among them. So when Coronado left New Mexico to return to New Spain, Padilla stayed on in New Mexico with 2 other Franciscans who happened to be natives and 1 Portuguese soldier. Later in 1541, Father Padilla and his merry band set off east to pursue this mission.
Now, this is where the story kind of becomes like the end of the movie Clue. Here's how it could have happened.
I love that movie. Yeah, seriously, there are a few different accounts of what happened next. The first possibility is a straightforward one. As the group was heading toward the original tribe, the Wichita, probably, and were nearing the village and the natives saw them coming. They decided they didn't like the Christians and sent out a war party to intercept them. When Father Padilla saw that the group coming toward them had hostile intent, he ordered his companions to flee, and he knelt to pray so as to draw their attention to him. And it worked. He was killed, and his companions escaped back to New Mexico. This would put his death squarely in 1542.
The other possibilities are some combination of parts, but they all start with Father Padilla and his companions being welcomed by the Wichita. It's here that things begin to get murky. One version has Father Padilla and company staying with them for a couple of months. Another says up to 2 years. This could put his date of martyrdom as late as sometime in 1544. Either way, what happened next was that after some length of time, Father Padilla decided to expand the mission.
At this point, one scenario says that the Wichita got upset with his decision to go to another tribe, so they killed him. Other accounts say that he and his companions set off from the Wichita camp in peace, but then were set upon by warriors of a tribe hostile to the Wichita.
Now, I don't really like that second scenario because that would mean that Father Padilla stayed with them for a couple of years, but his evangelization wasn't very successful.
You mean that first one where they killed him for trying to go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah. So, but in these scenarios, his companions were taken prisoner for a time, but managed to escape and make it back to New Mexico.
Yeah, and whichever account is true, it seems that all agree that Father Padilla gave himself up to the attackers in an effort to allow his companions to get away. He had gone out to bring Christ to the natives and suffered a martyr's death for his efforts.
Accounts continue to vary about his body after death. Most say his body was never recovered and the exact spot of his martyrdom is not known. But there is a church in Ouichita, New Mexico, which claims to be his burial place, though the evidence really suggests that the friar buried there is another Juan de Padilla who lived and died in Ouichita much later.
And because of all the uncertainty about where he died, there are 3 different places in Kansas with markers to honor Father Padilla there in Kansas. One is in Padilla Park in Harrington, Kansas. The second is a cross erected by the Knights of Columbus outside of Lyons, Kansas. I'm not sure if they pronounce it Lyon. About 80 miles west of Harrington. The third is near St. Rose of Lima Church in Council Grove, Kansas, about 30 miles east of Harrington.
But, well, if you think about it, it's fitting that the exact location of Father Padilla's martyrdom and his final resting place are not known because both locations, Harrington and Lyons, are about 100 miles from the central point of the contiguous 48 states. So, the first martyr to shed his blood for Christ on American soil did so right in the center.
That's just so cool.
It is so cool. The native tribes of the plains would not see another missionary for about 250 years. But when they came, the soil of Kansas, which became part of the United States in the Louisiana Purchase of 1803, was already watered with the blood of the proto-martyr of the United States, Father Juan de Padilla. This has been American Catholic History. If you enjoy American Catholic History, please become a supporter. We've got great perks for supporters. Get information on how to become a supporter and the perks at americancatholichistory.org/support.
Also on our website, sign up for our newsletter, learn more about Father Juan de Padilla, see about our pilgrimages, and find other great stories from American Catholic history.
We also love the great reviews our listeners leave. Those and the 5-star ratings help others find us. You can email us feedback, questions, tips for episode topics, or other comments at feedback@americancatholichistory.org. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/American Catholic History, on Instagram at ACH_podcast, or follow us on Twitter at ACH1513. I'm Noelle Heaster-Crow.
And I'm Tom Crow.
Thank you once again for joining us on American Catholic History, made possible by the support of listeners like you.